Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at a Garuda Gloom build. Now I actually was working on this last night and I chose to take a nap to do it for later, and it turns out a couple other people uploaded this already, so I guess you're just going to have to stay tuned and see what my take on it is. So we'll be replacing her Blood Altar with Gloom today. Now why is that, you think? Well, this is because her other abilities give her a lot of quality of life already. However, her Blood Altar has a couple of problems, being stuck in a single spot and having a fixed duration. Wouldn't it just be nicer if you could just cast it once and forget about it and drag it along with you? Well, that is exactly what Gloom allows you to do, and you can easily fuel the amount of energy you need for the ability through bloodletting, so long as you have HP. This works perfectly since Gloom also has lifesteal, and because it's always following you around and applies to every single attack, you'll constantly be topped up on health. I'll tell you right now, I tried using the endurance build I set up on Steel Path, and I don't think I ever even took legitimate health damage once the entire time. So let's take a look at this build. Well, you'll see you have a pretty balanced set amount of stats here, and this is what we're getting on our Gloom, capping out at 7.84% energy drain and all the way up to 28 meters. The slow is all the way up to 78%, which doubles both as CC and significantly improving your survivability, as well as 11% lifesteal on every single one of your attacks. Now, one of the biggest problems with Gloom on any frame is the insane energy drain, and you have very few ways to get this back except with energy orbs. However, bloodletting does work on it, bypassing the drain restrictions on normal energy restoration. This makes Garuda a perfect fit for Gloom, as both abilities directly feed back into each other while leaving the other two abilities also intact and still functional. So I'm actually running Growing Power on this build, which gives you an extra 25% strength once you proc status, which is pretty much going to be instant, and at that point you can untoggle and retoggle your Gloom on permanently for an 86.8% slow. We got Prime Sure-Footed on the build because nobody likes getting knocked down, especially because Garuda is such a mobile frame that likes to travel all the time. We have Natural Talent because her 4 is a little bit of a clunky cast, and this also lets you weave in her 3 easily into your movement, as you will be casting it pretty often to offset Gloom's drain. We will also be using her Dread Mirror a decent amount, so speeding up the cast on it is also nice. We have our Augur set here to get our shields back, but that's not super important on normal modes. However, we do want to get a decent amount of range going so that we can get Gloom working to its full potential, even CCing gun enemies. Augur Secrets doubles both as part of the Augur set and also more strength to increase the slow of our 2. This also significantly increases the damage capture multiplier on her 1, making it that much easier to stack up her Bleed Heart. Now we do want a little bit of duration to keep the drain of her 2 under control, as well as Prime Flow, because her 3 scales off of percent energy regained, making Prime Flow extremely powerful on the build. The duration also helps our 4 and 1 last much longer. Now what about our arcanes today? Well, you can use Arcane Aegis and Victory for shield regen and health regen, which is a bit intuitive with how much you're using her health and shields into the play style. If you don't want to use Aegis because you don't really need shield gating in lower levels, you can go with Arcane Fury instead. Or Strike to power your melees, or you can go with Avenger for a more universal option. Obviously, you also have choices like Pistolier if you really want to use your pistols a lot, or if you're so concerned about your health, maybe Arcane Guardian, but I don't think that's necessary. Arcane Victory procs on headshot kills and has a pretty decent chance, giving you some health back even if you aren't actively hitting enemies. This is just a little bit of extra sustain, however I don't think it's that important in normal mode and will probably come more into play on the endurance setup. So let's test this build on the enemies. We're going to dive right in with our 1 to set up our shield and stun them down, then we can immediately cast our 3 if we're low on energy, and then our 2. Now everything is pretty much slowed down to a crawl, and I don't even care about these knockdowns because of Prime Sure-Footed, so at this point I'm free to honestly just walk through this and build up the combo on my melee as I please. As my energy runs down from Gloom, all I have to do is tap my 3 again, and then you get 210 back, which is literally worth almost half a minute on this build. And then as soon as I start attacking things, I instantly get all of that health back. Now this build does gimp her passive slightly, where you won't really be able to take much advantage of her additional 100% multiplier due to you constantly healing off when you attack enemies, but you can get one use out of this. Once her Blood Mirror is stacked up high enough, if you do want to use it to take out a clump of enemies, you can cast your 3 first to get yourself all the way down to 2 HP, then cast your 4 and quickly charge up your 1 and throw it. Since you aren't really damaging anything much during this moment, you should remain low HP and you will get that multiplicative damage off of her Bleeding Heart. So what if you want to take her into Endurance instead? What changes on the build? Honestly, not too much. Garuda is already a very well built frame for endurance, so all what we're really changing is taking out growing power for brief respite and primed flow for rolling guard. You don't absolutely need growing power, it's more just of a quality of life thing that makes it super easy and nice, nearly completely freezing the enemies on normal mode. But you can still kill everything off fast enough on endurance that it really doesn't change things that much. Prime flow is another quality of life mod that makes things a bit easier on the playstyle. All taking it off means is you're just gonna have to cast your 3 more often, but because we have natural talent on the build, it just flows seamlessly into the playstyle. You'll also want to be running a Decay Dragon Key with this as usual so you can take full advantage of the fastest shield regen possible. Now if we take a look at our arcanes again, it's still Aegis and Victory. Honestly, there's more of a precedent to use them now, but you can still go the other routes such as Acceleration, Avenger, Strike, Fury, Pistolier, just like I said before, but I would advise considering Aegis and Victory more on Steel Path. Now you may also be wondering why not keep Prime Flow instead and drop Augur Secrets or Augur Reach. Now for Augur Secrets, I don't want to drop this because it cuts down our slow from 78 to 69%. We also don't have Growing Power, which was what allowed us to reach 86.8% slow previously. I don't consider dropping down to 69% slow an acceptable loss, so that's why I chose to keep it on. You may also be wondering why not run Umbral Vitality, so we can get the set bonus off on Umbral Intensify while also getting some health. Well, this is because if you go too far into Steel Path and Endurance, because it is an Endurance build, it doesn't really matter how much health you have. You still will get one shot at some point, and Toxin procs will still eat you alive as well as Electric procs, so that's why we're opting for damage negation instead of damage reduction. Once you're actually in the mission, the playstyle honestly doesn't really change that much. You still cast your 1 and then your 3 and then set up your 2 to slow everything down. Then you just hack everything apart with your melee and tap your 3 from time to time. Obviously, as the mission gets harder, you're probably going to want to priming the enemies up, and Garuda's perfectly fine for this, because Garuda can't take any damage from the front while she's setting up. The playstyle remains the same. Now, if you bring up Panzer Volpafilent to spread viral for you, you don't need to run viral on your melee, which increases your slash weight on the weapon and also saves you slots so that you can focus more on just base damage and crit stats instead. Of course, you may want to run a different companion for some reason, but do keep this in mind. Now the rest of the video is just some Steel Path footage that I did on Annie. I actually don't have Mod Unvoid on Steel Path, but well, there's still a level 120, 125. So at this point, I'm still shredding the enemies just by proccing Viral and Slash, and you can see I brought my Kato to prime them, which lets me instantly kill them. You can also use your Kuva Nucor instead, because using your Kato requires you to actually re-aim your gun to fire it, but both options work really well. You can even play with the new Epitaph on the Uncharged Shot by stacking Viral, Blast, and Cold, and a couple of other elements, as it does have a decent amount of radius on it. If you see a bunch of enemies and you have a stacked up heart, all you have to do is cast your 3 twice, then cast your 4, and then charge up your heart and launch the bomb at them with your 1. It pretty much just obliterates anything you touch. I do feel Garuda was already pretty strong before, and this build just makes everything flow that much better. She's essentially unkillable at this point. I don't think there was a single time I took any amount of noticeable health damage. I didn't even have to use my shield gating once there. Maybe it'll kick in later onwards once I start getting enemies that can just nearly one-tap me outright. But on that build, the combination of the primer and the slow and the bleeds and your frontal shield, it's just so smooth, and honestly this is probably going to be my go-to for an active playstyle in Steel Path for the foreseeable future, as it requires you to engage with the frame a lot. You do need to cast your 3 quite frequently, but it's a very quick cast and seamlessly flows into all of your other movements. You can cast your 1 as you need to reset the duration on your shield, and what I like the most is you have 2 abilities interacting perfectly with her 2 and 3, but her 1 and 4 remains fully intact on the build, with all abilities still being usable. That's about it what I wanted to show you today for this video. I'm sure you've seen a couple of Gloom Garuda builds already so far, but this was my take on it. I hope you liked what you saw. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like, or better yet, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 75.8% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to cover everything I can about Tempestarii as soon as I can get my hands on it, as well as more tips and tricks and possible future Helminth builds. So you don't want to miss out on any of that. That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.